Yeah. So we've come back into a hybrid program. So every department is either 2 or 3 days a week, just depending on what their function is. We talk about some of the resistance. I mean, I was like, I don't know about this. I mean, I spent 2 years at home, I'm put on the shorts and go downstairs. That's where I'm working from. So yeah, there's for sure resistance. For us, it wasn't emphasizing the things you're going away from. It's emphasizing the things that we gain by coming together. I mean, show of hands, who'd like to come in here in person and hanging out with people in person? Yeah. Like, we thrive on energy, we're humans. We thrive on that energy, so for us, we were intentional when we came back in the building to make sure people came into the spaces, to make sure we took every excuse to celebrate small wins, to bring people together for town halls, and make sure that energy was infused into the workforce, to make sure people were collaborating in person, having those happy accidents and those great conversations that happen in the hallway that don't happen when you are not going to bump into your folks because you're stepping on Legos at your house. So we were very intentional, and we can state that, like I said earlier, we have an energy in the building that is more palpable than we had before we left for the pandemic.
Hi, thank you for a wonderful topic that I'm very passionate about. Thanks, George. My question is about speaking about the importance of pipeline and developing the new generation of talent. And I know, George, what you do, and I know a little bit about what you, Tiffany, do at Metro. I would love to hear what you're currently doing to expand the pipeline and how important it is for everybody in this room to be intentional about expanding and creating a new generation of workforce.
So I could start. One of the things that we're doing, we are really trying to be intentional about tapping into underrepresented populations. So for example, high school students. And so, we've started to engage high schools across the city to really give their students some exposure to what's possible career-wise in healthcare. And we recognize that the benefit of that is that they can make more informed choices. So at Metro Health, for example, we have a partnership with Lincoln West High School, which sits right inside of the actual hospital. And so we offer programming to those students around healthcare, health disparities, job shadowing opportunities, career panels. I mean, it runs the gamut. And we're looking to expand that beyond just Lincoln West. And so when you think about CMSD school systems graduate an upwards of 2,000 students a year, and 50% of them go directly into the workforce. So if we can get in front of those students earlier and more often and really expose them to all of the opportunities and create that access, it then builds a stronger feeder into our pipeline.
Some of the things that we're doing at OD, so we have your traditional apprenticeship programs. So for those who don't want to go to a traditional 4-year institution, we really try to promote all types of career opportunities, whether you're going to go into a trade, you come right into the workforce after high school to get some really good work experience, or you have that 4-year degree. We try to promote all of that. In addition, we are looking to create our own reentry program. So there are so many ex-offenders that are being released from jail, and we're partnering with the communities to not only ensure that there's a viable path for those ex-offenders to have a great job, great income, to be able to give back to the community, but it gives us a great pipeline as well. So apprenticeships, our traditional internship programs, co-op programs, entry-level college graduate programs, and the reentry is what our focus has been to ensure we have a full and robust pipeline.
Well, good afternoon. So my question, she was a little bit into my question, but I'm going to reframe it a different way. So when we speak of DEI, DEIB, DEIA, all the acronyms associated with it, in today's time, we have the tendency to be very quick with these words and not really dig into the intentionality of what those words really mean and how they apply to our individual organizations. Much of what we can do as leaders at times can be influenced by inherent biases by which we make decisions, and then our organizations look one way, and we don't intend them to look one way. So can you all provide some expertise in terms of what you see in your organizations to kind of chop that up a bit so that when we pull up our websites or when we're at the table, it actually reflects DEI, DEIB, DEIA?
Yeah, one of the things from my background, I've had diversity roles, I've had HR roles, I've had a gambit of that. I've seen DEI efforts be most impactful when they're very much tied in with our HR processes, especially our talent management processes. You have to be thoughtful because the outcomes you seek, a lot of them are the HR processes. Talk about promotions, performance management, hiring. Those are all processes that are managed by HR, so making sure those efforts are tied in there. We have programs where we're looking at what does the distribution of our performance management look like in the ratings, by ethnicity, by gender. Do we have inherent biases that are there? And then if we find those things, how do we find the root cause? And I'll use that example there. We found that sometimes our minority professionals were getting less opportunities for those high visibility, high priority projects. So yeah, they were doing a good job of getting achieves. We talk about exceeds and outstanding. Those only happen when managers are thoughtful about going beyond their go-to people and then giving those high visibility, high priority assignments to people who are not the go-to folks. So once we started doing that, we're seeing better results now because more folks are being able to shine. They're being able to bring their full selves and their full skill set. And we find out we have more go-to folks than we thought we had because we're going beyond those just top 10% of people that were usually getting all the plum assignments. Now we're getting greater distribution. So that's just one example of us being very intentional about thinking about diversity, equity, inclusion, but what does it look like at the ground level, at the operational level? And that's one way to operationalize it.
And being in the manufacturing industry, we're a little bit different at my organization where we are very diverse in our manufacturing plants and distribution centers for our hourly associates or the entry level. But when we look at the managerial ranks or the salaried ranks, diversity was almost non-existent. So we are very intentional in our talent acquisition practices to say we have to have a diverse candidate slate coming in the door so we can build our more minority representation within our managerial ranks, not just hiring for a number, but ensuring we have quality hires coming in. We don't want a quota, we don't want to just get the stat. We want to ensure there's quality in the talent, and that background may look a little different. So if you say you have to have a certain amount of experience, well, you really have to look at the population that has that experience. If it's something that's traditionally filled by white males, you can't say that's what you want coming into this because you already have a deficit in the talent pool that is lacking that experience. For example, maybe wholesale sales from a plumbing perspective. If there's not a lot of minorities there, you can't require that experience because you're just bringing in more of what you already have. So we're being creative in the experience that we're aligning to what's going to work at our organization and being very intentional with where we're going to seek new talent coming in.
I have a question via text. Sometimes it feels like HR professionals are being asked to do too much. We talk about employee retention, but what about HR management retention?
Who is ready to quit their job?
Right.
What can the Workforce Development Network do to help the HR sector?
I guess I'll share a unique experience. So I think it's that sense of community, right, and collaboration, not just internally within your HR teams, but then also externally. It made me, as you were asking that question, I was reflecting on the workforce collaboratives that are now kind of emerging over the last few years. I'm part of the healthcare collaborative, and so, in talking with my counterparts at Cleveland Clinic or UH or some of the other institutions, that's really been helpful, that community and having a space in which we can share ideas, share best practices. and getting an outside perspective, you know, and so that's always recharging for me personally, and then bringing that back into the HR teams, that information back into the HR teams, and how, you know, that looks for us specifically within Metro Health. But I think it's leveraging your community for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. Talk about your community. So I serve as president for the Cleveland Society of Human Resource Management, and those are great opportunities to connect with other HR professionals, because if you're an HR professional, you got headache after headache coming left and right. So to be able to connect with other HR professionals who are experiencing similar things, and to be able to sometimes complain. Sometimes we're complaining about y'all. Sometimes.
So it has to be a trusted space.
Yeah, it has to be a trusted space for sure. But to know other folks are going through that and be able to problem solve through that and work through those shared experiences you have in different organizations is important. So going back to what Tiffany said, us having that sense of community is vitally important.
Right. And other HR professionals, we know what each other goes through, so we have an appreciation, whereas we may, like for example, in participating in the planning call for this session, I had an employee relations issue and I was late joining the call, and you know, I know my colleagues here could appreciate that because they're in the same space. So having someone that can understand and empathize with what you're going through is very helpful, and is a good stress reliever for us in this field.
Good afternoon. This is a great discussion. My name is Craig Platt. I lead the IT sector partnership, and a lot of the great data we get from Team Neil says about 2,300 entry-level jobs go unfilled every year in IT. And so as I sat around with my employer leadership team and we started talking about that, they mentioned, Craig, our biggest need is 40% of the openings are mid-level. So as you look at talent acquisition, how do you turn that into talent development so people can achieve their goals and move through the organization and have shared prosperity?
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about earlier was that instead of looking for credentials, looking for the skill sets. So if you have those positions that are open, how do we make sure that we're creating opportunities for people to build those skill sets, sometimes in non-traditional ways, so we can fill some of those opportunities that are there? So that's what we've been looking more intently at, that knowledge, skills, and abilities, and how do we create more talent that way, because there's definitely a gap in the need right now.
And don't let your development programs be the first things that are cut when your organization says, hey, we got to do some cost cutting. Keep the development programs, because if you cut them, you're cutting the skills that you need in order to generate more revenue. So you have to do that and just be intentional with creating those programs, because it's a great motivator for your associates to be able to grow within their organization, as well as bringing in new talent. So if you have internal training programs, take your entry level, develop them internally. They know your organization and they have that fulfillment of, I started here and now I'm continuously growing through the organization.
Yeah, that's huge. I remember when I worked for the Regional Sewer District, we created a maintenance training program. So we took people they were painters, they were janitors, and put them through a program where they brought education to them, had on-the-job training, and turned them to electricians, mechanics. They're grateful forever for that opportunity because you've changed their life.
Yeah.
So for your organizations, if you can create programs, they're going to train them, give them a higher level skill set, there's a different level of connection they're going to have with your organization long term.
Absolutely.
We have a question from Twitter. With recent mass shootings across workplaces, what are you hearing from employees about their concerns? How do you balance offering active attacker training to frontline employees who have these concerns, and then balancing the message that sends about their safety in the work environment?
Wow. It is truly, first and foremost, allowing that safe space for associates to talk about what has happened and what is happening, whether they're personally affected or they know someone who is affected or just affected because of all of the media attention. So having that safe space to have conversations, but then also being very transparent about what the company is doing to ensure that our environment is safe. So not only, we've always had our environmental health, safety, and security practices in place, but now we're enhancing that. So we will have active shooter training for all of our associates, not just corporate associates. So we're in the process of developing that. Reminding associates, we have a badge system and security system for a reason to get into our facilities. Don't just open the door for people thinking, oh, I'm being nice. If you don't know that person, let them buzz in with the receptionist or whoever before just opening the door. So reminding all of our associates of some of the simple safety practices. And as simple as it may seem, to say if you see something or hear something that just doesn't seem right, speak up about it. We would rather kind of waste the time to have the conversation and look into it because something may be there versus having an associate saying, well, I thought, but I didn't want to bother anyone. Speak up about anything that may seem odd to keep us all safe.
Great. All right, we're going to try to squeeze one last one in if we can. Here's my question. Imagine you're the HR lead at Tesla and you have a one-on-one with Elon Musk. And we can leave it there, but no, it says, how do you advise him after his pronouncement about returning to the office?
Person like, stop tweeting.
Right.
It's hard. This is not the first time you've had pronouncements from high-profile CEOs say we're doing this way or going either to the office or going back home. So it's tough because every leader is going to lead in their own different way. He has his own brand. What I would say more generally, in regards to leaders more generally, or not Elon Musk, but high-profile leaders, you have to be thoughtful about what your organization needs. And you have to be tuned in to what your organization needs. Every organization has a different culture. They have a different way that they operate. So, a bank is not going to be the same thing as a manufacturer. But the leader has to be all the way tuned into that and what the needs are for their employee base. So I would say, Elon, stop tweeting. And let's step back and be thoughtful about what are the specific needs of our specific workforce.
All right. Thank you to our panelists.
I'm Cynthia Connolly, Director of Programming at the City Club, and we've been talking about the changing reality of human resource management with George Sample from the Cleveland Fed, Tiffany Short with Metro Health, and Dalethea Smith of ODCO. Our moderator today was Bethia Burke of the Fund for Our Economic Future. Thank you all for being here. We'd like to thank the Deaconess Foundation for their partnership and guidance on this series on workforce development, and thanks also to our friends at Bank of America for their help with this as well. Our next forum in this series is coming up in late July. Keep your eyes on our website for that at cityclub.org. We would like to welcome guests at tables hosted by the Deaconess Foundation, the Employment Collaborative, ERC, Fund for Our Economic Future, Global Cleveland, and USI Insurance. Next Friday, we'll welcome nationally known artist and author Dr. Ann Basting. She will discuss how to radically change the ways we interact with our elders, which includes infusing arts, creativity, and even improv comedy into elder care settings. And starting June 21st, we will spend our Tuesdays in Public Square. With such a change of the guard in leadership recently, we will be speaking with some of these new and emerging leaders. This includes Hannah Halbert of Policy Matters Ohio, City of Cleveland City Planner Joyce Wong, Tony Richardson of the Gun Foundation, and new nonprofit editors-in-chief Lila Mills and Jim Crutchfield. You can learn more about these forums and others at cityclub.org. And that brings us to the end of today's forum. Thank you, George, Tiffany, Dalethea, Bethia, and thank you, members and friends of the City Club. I'm Cynthia Connolly, and this forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.
Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC, and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.